Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. I greet you with honor and blessings to all of you, all of your family, relatives, and so forth. And I am your tempered host, Mr. David Null, and this is Wednesday. This is Halloween on October 31st, 2018. So, anyway, um, as a musician, guitar player, mandolin, stringed instruments over many, many, many years, like 40. I've been tuning guitars to what the standard has been since I, picked up a guitar in like, I don't know, about 1967 or 68. And I've always noticed that when you tune um, the second string, and I'm having a brain fart at the moment. I just decided to do this video and give my 2 cents on this because I've seen a couple of videos here recently. Just watched one about 440 versus 432. Well, and that it's satanic and the Nazis and all this other kind of thing. And where did I put those strings? I got brand new strings. Oh, they're right over there. Anyway, so the 440, it's like, all right, so I've been tuning things to 440 for all my life. When I found out a couple of years ago about the tuning to 432, I was like, now what is this all about? So I did do some research on it. And yes, this did change back in the 30s, uh, late 20s, 30s, and so forth. The standard was changed from 432 to 440, but it's not particularly the reason that people think. And I do agree with this information. They changed it because the music industry was brand new and they had phonographs with great big, horns on them. They didn't have speakers like we do now. In fact, if you've all picked up an old radio set, some of those old headphones are just these plastic things, it sounds horrible, the music quality in those things now. I mean, you can get earbuds now. I mean, I put some earbuds in a couple of years ago and I was astounded at the stereo quality coming through these tiny little thingies in my ears, where I've had huge sets of headphones over the years in the radio industry and recording industry and my end, and have noticed they're like, holy mackerel, these two tiny little things I sound like I'm in an auditorium. Okay, with that said, so the thing about what folks think, oh, it was satanic in origin, may have a little bit of something to it, but the biggest reason they changed was because of the music industry. 432 wouldn't play correctly on those old types of machines. And it wasn't until in the 60s where the speakers began to improve, and that it doesn't matter what something is tuned to because of tweeters and the technology in the speaker, and also in the dynamics of the enclosure of the speaker, the stereo speaker, whatever it is. So, but now I want to put forth that there is a lot of study about those things that are tuned in the 440 pitch. And if you understand any of it at all, you've probably seen the video where they play something over a loudspeaker, and at 440 it's all disruptive, and you put it to 432, and I think they use sand or salt or something anyway, but it makes a certain pattern. All right. Well, now that is true. That is scientifically proven. People who want to do the experiments on their own, you will find very similar results because it is about frequency. Now, as a musician and as a guitar player, I have noticed that tuning to 432, which is like actually you're tuning to the flat side. I've got several guitar tuners, and to get to 432, since they're originally set at 440, I found that if there's a particular point on the when it's flat or sharp, if you're looking for the A line or the middle C, if you will, okay, and and I've got a keyboard upstairs, and you can change the pitch, so I can hit middle C and I can change the pitch up or down electronically. so I can change the pitch on my electronic piano to 432 on middle C. Now there's a lot of argument out there. It's like, well, okay, yeah, but one of the keys is going to end up in a 440. Now this is my argument about tuning the 432. It sounds better on the guitar. Now I've heard other people, oh well, there's no difference. Well, the top two strings, when you make a D, or you make a D seventh, I think it is, which is like an inverted D. It sounds so there isn't that weird kind of tuneness in it, where you tune on the fifth fret from the G down. Then when you get to the actually it's the second string, you tune it to the fourth fret of the third string, and it's like, okay, well but when you do that, to me, as long as I've been playing guitar, I've never been able to get those. It never sounds right. However, when I tune the guitar using a 432 as the bass, when I get to those top two strings and make a D in a D chord, it just sounds awesome. It's more cleaner. Now, there are a lot of people like audiophiles and this, that, and the other thing. Oh, well, there's no difference. Okay, guys, if you play guitar, I would just ask you to tune down a little bit to the 432 level, where all the instruments, when they were designed in the Middle Ages and Baroque time and Bach and them and everything to them was in a 432, but they were playing in concert halls. They weren't, those records weren't being played over an old type stereophonic with a great big horn on it. Okay. So they changed to 440 for a technical reason, to be able to get the sound to come out of those older systems. Now, do I think there was something satanic in there? There's too much other evidence for the reasons why they really did change it. And it has to do with, hey, Breaking Dawn, Miss Deborah, I got your message. Thank you. Blessings to you. I hope those pork chops were good, by the way. You had me thinking about making pork chops, but I digress. But to the 440, 432 issue, when I tune my guitars now to the 432, I'm just saying that when you tune it to those last three, your top three strings, and I'm sorry, I'm just having brain fart on which string is the D and the A, just the top three strings. A C sounds better. When you play a B minor or a B or B flat, it sounds better. It sounds like it's supposed to sound, kind of thing. I don't understand, because there's been a lot of times, I've been playing guitar since about 1967 or 68. And even back then I was like, why doesn't this quite sound right? Now, we didn't have electronic tuning back in those days. We used tuning forks. So I would get an E and you'd hold it to the body of the guitar and you tune your high and your low to that E, and then everything tried to fall in between. And, but to the point though, had that it's so much, it sounds so much cleaner when you tune a guitar to a 432. Now, I have new strings for my mandolin that I haven't put on yet, and I hope to be doing that soon. And I'm going to tune my mandolin to 432, because mandolins, etc., they all the frets and everything were put on for a particular reason, where their spacing and everything to get the right frequency or the tone or the A or C or whatever. But to the point though, it sounds better when I play when it's tuned to 432. No, okay, Dave, there's hogwash, there's this, there's that. All right, you can make up anything you want to say. Well, it's, satanic. No, I'm just saying that was the standard for a long time in the music industry. And the 440 was made to accommodate crappy speakers. Technology has advanced since the 60s, obviously. And, and so there are people who are saying, oh, well, all your favorite rock bands, the Beatles were playing when tuned to 440. But I'm here to tell you, opera singers and folks that, that are written, when you tune to the 432, you can hit a high C or whatever, and you don't feel parts of your body fall off, if you understand what I'm trying to say here. The notes seem easier to reach. I mean, even in some of these old folk songs, I've listened to old blues music from way back, before they changed the tone from 432 to 440. And some of those blues players, and I'm like, I could never find the note. I'd listen and like pick it with my guitar, and it was always somewhere in between. It's because they were tuned to 432. So when I'm listening to the old blues before they changed it, some of the Robert, oh, man, I'm having a brain fart with names at the moment. I didn't plan on doing this. I just decided to have a discussion about it. Robert Johnson, and I've listened to him. And I'm like, why can't I get the same sound that Robert Johnson is getting? It's because he tuned his guitar down. All the old timers, it was like 432 was it. All the old fiddle players, 432. And all the old songs were then sung in 432. Some of the old spirituals and stuff, they were written, guess what, with 432 in mind. The choral arrangements and so forth were in 432. Now, I was in choir, and I've sang in, many musicals and things, and chorals and stuff like that. Not to toot my home, but to explain that I understand what I'm talking about. And I think to myself, some of those high notes I was having difficulty hitting, or a certain flat or a key or something, how would that have, sounded had we, all of our instruments, excuse me, been tuned at 432 instead of 440? I know several of, the one, we did a show called Smoke on the Mountain, and we did it with all old, spirituals and things. But the thing is, some of those old spirituals were written before they changed and the gospel tunes and so forth were written before they changed it to 440. And so when you try to hit those higher keys, it's like, you're really reaching, and your stomach's grabbing, and, parts are trying to fall off your body, especially for men. But, if it had been tuned to 432, it probably would have sounded more natural. And those higher notes and flats and weird things that kind of, really, I would sit there with the pianist, the piano person, our director, and he was a fine gentleman. He was a Juilliard graduate, and we had wonderful discussions about why is this thing so high, and why. And he was like, we'd have these discussions, but we never had the discussion before he passed, that the difference between the tuning of 440 versus 432, because he played at a lot of classical music and so forth, and he could transpose. This man was an absolute genius, and I can't remember his name right now, but I'm thinking about him, and he was a wonderfully kind gentleman. And a graduate from Juilliard said that he thought that he could hit a note, and I could hear it, and I'd say, hit that again, and I could hit that note just right on. And he said that he had wished that he had known me younger. He would have encouraged me to have went into music, which I still to this day. There was no reason for giving me the compliments that he did, because it was just one-on-one and so forth. But anyway, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he was very famous around Thomasville, Georgia. And one of the most genuinely kind men, and he loved Monty Python, by the way, which was just so like out of character for this gentleman. But anyway, 440 versus 432. If you play a stringed instrument, I ask you, please try it. When you go to turn to E, it's basically an E flat, okay, versus a sharp, because you're tuning down. And all you got to do is get kind of close. But I'm here to tell you, when you hit your last three strings, and when you go to make some of those chords in the D that doesn't, your middle finger, you can't quite get that second string to like come in, and it's always off. I see a lot of guitar players who are always fine tuning that little bit. If you go to 432, it just fits. I'm just saying. So whether or not it has any satanic background or any kind of evil genius, whatever, if you play a stringed instrument, just tune it flat all the way across the board and give it a try. It really is rather amazing. I just made a mark on my guitar tuner because its pitch is at 440. But when I want to go to 432, I realized you can get phone apps and things, to tune with, which I don't have. But I tuned it once and then used my guitar tuner and said, okay, this is where 432 is really close. And I just put a little magic mark where the flat side of that 440 tuner is. And I just tuned to that. And it's really, really, really close. But the thing is that, and it's easier to hit the higher notes. I mean, even when you use your capo, there's a tonal quality it's more harmonic with the instrument. Now, I can't prove any of this stuff, but I've got 4 different guitars and even an electric one. And when I tune them to 432, they just play better. And at the same point, when I'm looking for a note that Robert Johnson played, and I'm listening to his old recordings, and I'm like, well, where the hell is that note? When you go to 432, you can match the notes. And and by the way, as a 10-cent point, several years ago, Eric Clapton did a blues kind of thing. Him and another guy, maybe 2, went into an empty room with some microphones, and they were playing some old Robert Johnson. Well, one of the things I noticed when he started going into playing Robert Johnson music was that he tuned his guitar down. The first thing he did before he went into Robert Johnson was he tuned his bottom E down and tuned everything else accordingly. And I didn't notice it at the time. What was he doing? Well, now over the years of retrospect of watching Eric Clapton and this other gentleman do this blues set, which was on video, by the way. I don't know if it was, Clapton Unplugged or whatever, but there was this video that I'm sure is available out there somewhere. Maybe it may be on YouTube. I don't know, but I haven't checked. But to the point, though, as they did the Robert Johnson, and when they came out of it and got into more current music, they would tune back up. And that was before I really understood. Oh, like, well, he's tuning down. Okay, well. But I didn't understand that the tuning down was going to the 432. And for some reason, there are some things that have been so obvious to me for many years, and it just didn't dawn on me what the heck was going on or why they were doing it. And the reason they tuned down was because they couldn't play Robert Johnson's music correctly in 440, because Robert Johnson played in 432. So argue all you want to, but you can watch some of these pros and they will tune down when they want to play a specific type of blues or when they want to match something, some old Mississippi Delta. Them old folk down there, they were all at 432, that because it was the standard across the board. All of the harmonicas and things that they pitched to at that time were at 432. So you could get a harmonica that was pitched, hit an E or a middle C or whatever, and tune your guitar to that, and they would match. I've listened to some old harp music, meaning harmonica music, and I've got like 10 different harps, one in every key. I've got a slider, and so I've lost a lot of information because of my brain injury. But to the point, what I remember is I would listen to these older recordings of these blues players playing harmonica, and I could never hit the same key. I'd hit a note and it would be sharp or flat, and I'm like, now what is this? So I adapted it, but if I was to try to play with that record of the recording back in the 20s and 30s, I could never hit the same, you know, because they were recorded in 432. Now Hohner and some other harmonica manufacturers are beginning to make harmonicas tuned to 432. And it's like, wow. Now I haven't tried one. I haven't had the money to buy anything like that. But to the point, it makes sense to me because the Germans were making harmonicas and stuff for years, long before they changed the pitch or the standard. And the other thing is, okay, well, if the Nazis were so much into this satanic thing, I mean, Hohner is like from there, and there must have been a really big reason for a major company such as Hohner and other musical instruments to say, hey, we're going to, instead of 432, we're going to 440. So this business about satanic stuff, I'm sorry, Hohner would have put up a fight. There are people, in Vienna and places around that would have pitched a bitch about you want us to tune up. What about the desecration of, orchestral music and Bach and Beethoven? They all wrote with 432 in mind. Try to play a harpsichord that's tuned up now. It doesn't sound the same as what Bach wrote for the harpsichord. But when when the harpsichord is tuned to 432 and it's played correctly, it's magnanimous. So, yeah, all right. I've been listening to music for the last, 60 years, okay? And been paying attention for the last 55 years, at least. We took music appreciation in high school, and we went to concerts, and, we had, a cellist and an oboist come in and do a duet kind of thing, in Baroque style. Unbelievable, the music when you sit in the room with, people who play orchestral type of music, the cello, the oboe, the bassoon, and I had an opportunity to sit 4 feet away and at one time the cellist and the oboist brought in a bassoon, just a really strange instrument. And oh my gosh. But the thing is that they were tuned down. They could tune and they were in tune with the 432 when they played that classic music. Now, when it got into a stringed instrument, things kind of changed. But to the point, though, the 432, it just sounds better. It plays better. And, there's a lot of argument across the board about the satanic issue. I just simply want to say, I don't think there's a lot to it. Because, manufacturing back then, it costs a lot of money to retool a business. It does. I mean, I worked in manufacturing. I get it. So for Hohner and them folks in Germany and Sweden and Austria and all that, and it was across the board, but it had to do with because electronics came into the issue because of vacuum tubes and other types of things. The 440 didn't blow out the tubes. It came out these big giant speakers that they had back in the day before they improved speaker quality. So with that said, I just ask you, hey, if you play guitar, tune down, try it. You'll be amazed at how it's that that D chord just sounds better. It plays easier and it fits. I mean, I'm okay. But anyway, there we go. I'm ranting on and on and on, and I didn't intend to even do a video right now. But anyway, much love to you all. And that's my 2 cents on the thing. But I think people should take out the satanic thing. They changed it for a particular reason, and it was because of the new electronics and crappy speakers. Okay, that was the real reason. But to the 432 point, all the instruments were designed to play 432. They sound better with 432 when you play them. Just try it. I'm just saying. So I'm your friendly neighborhood kook of the day, Mr. David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers. And there are a lot of people out there that are trying to keep us in chaos and throw us into chaos. Do I think 432 is better? And just by playing it and listening and singing, and yes. And and does 440, there's going to be one of those strings that are going to be close to 440 or the tonal quality or whatever. So, but do I think it's satanic? No. There's too much evidence to prove it was because of technology. All right. Now, people have sinister plans about all kinds of stuff. And if you just want to continue believing that, now look, I believe in a lot of conspiracies. So when I'm coming in here and trying to tell you that, oh my God, maybe this isn't satanic, there was a legitimate reason for changing it across the board. And I'm telling you that all those manufacturers of instruments, especially harmonicas back then, they would have seriously had to change their point of view in order for them to make that change. They would have had to change every single piece of tooling. They would have had to remake all their punch dies. They would have had to remanufacture. Yes, it would have been similar, but they would have had to retool their entire factory, because when these are the little brass strips inside of a harmonica that vibrate, they have to be adjusted in length. Well, that's a punch die that does it. I used to build them, and they punch, they boom, 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 boom. And if you make something shorter or longer, you have to fit. You can't add or subtract. Well, actually, if you want to make something longer, you can. But you can hollow it out, but then the top piece isn't long enough. You got to weld it on. I mean, you have to make a whole new tool, because it's that fraction of however longer or shorter the each one of those pieces of brass in all of the different keys of all of the harmonicas. Okay, so Hohner and all of them, and they're from Germany and Austria and over there, they would have had to agree to this because of another reason. So my point with this is, and if they were satanic in that cost them a bundle, even back then, to retool all that stuff and all these other different manufacturers. So anyway, to the point, was it just because of satanic? Nah. Were there evil people on the list who, like one of the, I can't, who, it was like the German Nazi who was, the communications officer for the Nazi Party. Well, he was in communications. Of course, he would have been involved in it. But were the Nazis the reason they changed it? And I gotta say, I don't see it. I don't buy it. Sorry. A lot of conspiracies I'm on board with, but this one ain't it. Now, again, I'm repeating myself for the fourth time. Just retune your guitar down and see if you like it. I'll leave it at that. Who? Oh, somebody came on board here. I can't see my. Oh, glasses are on my head. Deborah, hi. Melanie Weiser, less fear. Thank you. Hi, Hawkeye. Can you look into the history of the backmasking? There's some really strange stuff about that. And I have I have 3 personal recording devices, 4-track, 2 old tape devices, and 1 digital. And plus, I've got software that I've had for many years. And as a director, actor, and producer of plays, I've done, I don't know, 30 different soundtracks over the years for different plays, gunshots, car, breaks, I have an extensive library of sound effects. And so I used to do these audio tapes for each of the plays with all of the sound effects or whatever music was needed, so that whoever was running the soundboard, all they had to do was play track 1, play track 2, 3, 4, etc., versus trying to put in different sections of music or whatever. So with that backmasking, there are some strange things that you can do that the human ear will barely pick up. And it takes a crazy audio file like me who buys a $200 pair of headphones to be able to make these recordings because I'm such a stickler in that. And I don't like any noise in my re-recordings or anything, and I no hiss or any. But anyway, But so with computer programs, you're able to take a lot of that mess out. I still use my digital 4-track because I just couldn't afford the 8-track. But that's another story. And I think it's a Yamaha. It's a really good one, and lots of beautiful settings and so forth. And I'm able to do things that like most people don't even understand to do. Crazy people. I get 10 phone calls a day, and they're from nobody. And somebody called me the other day to get off topic slightly and said, why did you call this number? And I was like, what? So somebody's using my house phone number to make junk calls, and they're stealing our phone number address, but they're hacking a cell phone or something using my number. And so I'll pick it up and it'll say something something in Lilburn, Georgia. Well, I don't know anybody in Lilburn. Then you pick it up and it'll look like a cell phone, and then you pick it up and go, oh, and it's not Janie Smith, or it's not whoever it is. These creeps. So there are times when people call me and say, why didn't you call me back? And it's like, well, I had 10 other phone calls that was BS, and I didn't recognize yours in the mess. I might have deleted it by accident or just didn't see it in all the confusion. But to the point, anyway, back to the backmasking. There are a lot of things that you can do, and especially now digitally. Back in the day when you had different recording devices. Now, I worked in radio, and my first time on the air was in 1969. Now, I just read, some news and weather report and that kind of thing. But it was, as an apprentice for Tampa Technical Institute in their local little radio station there. And to me, it was a big deal because my voice went out there. And so I have down here in South Georgia, I have worked at several of these radio stations don't even exist anymore because of times and changes. But back in the day, there were old AM stations, and I worked weekends. Somebody got sick, I'd fill in. I've worked at, one station in Moultrie, Camilla, 3 different stations in Thomasville, one in Cairo, two or 3 in Tifton. So I've worked different radio stations over the years. I played top 40 at the time at WWGS in Tifton, which is actually no longer even there. So when you had to do a splice, there was a little stainless steel table, and it was the width of the tape. And you'd put one side of the tape in, one side out, and you literally cut it out on a diagonal and they had a special tape, but we learned that Scotch tape worked when you ran out of the special tape. But you cut it diagonal with a razor blade, and you spliced the two together, and you literally spliced the tape together. So it was really difficult to do those types of things back in the early days of recording. I mean, even into the 70s, we were still physically splicing tape, even with some of these upbeat stations that, I'm thinking in 78 and 79, we were still literally in commercials. We were splicing tape, on big reel to reels. And there'd be so much stuff. We'd literally cut a whole section out, splice it together, and use up, the backside of the tape and, demagnetize the tapes, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but you literally splice the tapes. Nowadays, there's so much technology in free software that you can download that you can play a music forward and then do the backmasking or backtracking and play something backwards at the end, like the Beatles did in the 60s. That was really difficult. I was one of the first people to spin that LP backwards to, hear Paul is dead, dot, 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 and so I've been intrigued by this for a long time. That's been I've actually, well, I used to do soundtracks even for the Tallahassee Little Theater when I had folks who were directing and producing down there. So I've done soundtracks for a lot of different, a lot of different productions. And some of them, they paid me money for my time and, the quality that I did. And I picked up a certain reputation for being able to do that. Then I got sick and I haven't done it in a couple of years. But the thing is I do understand it. Now, the backmasking, it depends on what your desired, what do I say, what your purpose is. If it's to create a distortion, or if you're trying to play something backwards that, Satan, the demon, blah, now that's nefarious. But there are folks who are doing it, and they're putting things in. I mean, one of the free programs that I have, and I can't remember the name of it. It won't run on this computer, but it's on my laptop upstairs. Is that there are 126 different tracks, and you can merge them all. You can tweak them. You can take one track and flip it. You can do whatever you want to do. So these folks who have the technology now with these programs in the computer, they're doing stuff I say I'd never dream of, because I have no ill intent. If I was to make a tape, which I was going to do I was going to make my own subliminal tape. I was going to do my own native flute music. And, I was going to put my own hypnotic suggestions in the thing, to be calm and find your center. And it was going to be my own tape. I still have some of it, but to the point I thought, well, this is just kind of ridiculous. Why don't I just practice the mantra in my head and just play flute music, myself, or, put it on the stereo already recorded. So it just seemed like, well, this is a little stupid in a way. Could I give it to friends and neighbors or whatever? And I didn't really have any intent to sell it, but it was just for my own. Then I realized, wait, but anyway, that's just a personal, hee-haw. But to the backmasking and other things that are going on with these recordings, man, shoot, there are so many things going on that unless you have worked with different tracks and can pick out specific things, some of these maskings and so forth are so nefarious. They're on a subliminal tone, and that's scary. Some of these folks who are listening to certain types of rap music at really loud levels, it's like they're unable to turn it down. And it's been suggested that what's more nefarious than the 440 tuning is more in the noise level of the music. Where now I played loud music. Don't get me wrong, man. Every time my parents left, I cranked that sucker up. I listened to Jethro Tull and Thick as a Brick, and I've listened to all kind of music, And but to the point though, King Crimson, Court of the Kings and Crimson King, and anyway. And classical music, certain classical music I absolutely love still to this day. We'll turn it up because there is this feeling of filling the room with the music, not just listening to the tune, but feeling the music like you were in the auditorium. So I was into that a bunch. But now, the music that's being pushed out there now, I could listen to Elvis on a lower level. I could listen to Long Tall Sally, at a lower level. I didn't have to crank it all the way up. But the music these days, it's almost like there's something in the music. The only way you can listen to it is with it cranked up and going to boom, but the boom, but the boom, but the boom. And it's like, hey, I get loud music. Hey, I get it. But that sounds like to me. And I'm sorry to, break into your corner, but some of this stuff is just, it's pathetic to me. And so it's my personal choice, but others are seeing it. Okay, they're old fogies like me, but we've all played music. We all played in some kind of garage band. I still have an electric guitar and an amp, and it's still fun to get it out and be loud, But some of this stuff, it's not, it's not about just being loud. There's something in it. It's almost like mesmerizing. And the people who listen to it continuously can only listen to it at a high level. They can't turn it down. I don't know so much as they won't, which is true, but that they can't. They have to play it loud. It must be at a certain loudness in order for them to get whatever it is they're getting off of it. And call it backmasking, whatever. There's something weird in there. And there are a lot of people now who are looking at that going, Now, I don't, it would be like at a certain decibel, there is like a hidden message, and you can't hear it unless the stereo is turned up to a particular decibel. It's like hidden in the loudness, if you will. And I think it's what drives some of us batshit crazy. It's like when maybe I could listen to it at a lower volume, but they can't. I'm like, turn that down. I can't. It's so loud I can't hear the words. Well, what? You don't hear the words? He said bitch and mama and doing this and and I'm like, what? I'm sorry. Again, I like loud music, but I can't. They understand it, but they're used to that loud volume. Whereas a lot of us who are kind of sensitive to that hear it, and we hear junk. Can't hear the lyrics. And the thumpity thump is getting a little on my nerves here. And it's not necessarily that every song the beat is bad. And I know I've come across to times and told folks, hey, you know what? It's sort of like, well, there's just some jazz I don't like. Others are okay with. It's the ones that make this screechy noise, and it's noise to me, and it grates on me, And I'm sorry, but there are people who like dote on that, and it's like, go for it. But it's the same thing with certain rap music, new music, whatever. And it's like, I'm sorry, folks talk about, well, if you won't listen to rap, you must be prejudiced. And I'm like, no, I listened to, Diana Ross and the Supremes. I grew up on them, the fourth, oh my God. No, me? I'm, I was I'm trying to remember his name. He came out with Long Tall Sally, but anyway, black, Little Richard. Oh, how could I forget Little Richard? But Little Richard, I think he may still be alive. Actually, I lived up around Macon all of his life, Macon, Georgia, and it's like, hey, man, but that dude could play. And still can if he's still alive and playing. Like U.B. Blake was he played, U.B. Blake, if anybody looks back 100+ years ago, U.B. Blake was making music that people nowadays can't play. I mean, he would play, he did all, you hear of the old timey piano music, the minstrel shows and stuff, normal people can't play that stuff. U.B. Blake was in his 70s and 80s and a little short black man, but he wrote most of the earlier music. I mean, 90 songs or something. It was just amazing what he did. And with the piano, honky tonk pianos, he wrote those songs for the honky tonk pianos. If you were listening to an old Western, and you hear the piano player playing something, probably U.B. Blake wrote it. Just saying, I mean, seriously, so the times have changed as far as music styles and so forth and pitches. When you try to play some of what U.B. Blake played on the piano back in the day, when you play it now on a tune 440, it sounds a little off key. And that's because he wrote it in 432 back at the turn of, 18 to 1900s, And so it's like, we need to consider these things if nothing else. Now, the backmasking and other things, this loudness issue has been brought up. Chaos. Absolutely, Melanie. And now I will agree that what's going on in the music industry now is not necessarily directly related to the 440, but I think they're using the 440 now to their advantage. Okay. I don't think they changed it to 440 for satanic reasons only. There was a lot of other reasoning in there. But are they using the 440 to their advantage now? Yes, absolutely. Because those folks who are attuned to that 440 get off on it. And for me and for lots of other people, when we hear some of that stuff, it literally, there's a part of us, it wants to drive my tiny little place in my brain insane. And I'm sorry, why can't you listen to this? It's buzzing my head in a way. It's like, I'm sorry, I got to just get away. And a lot of times I do feel like it's some kind of sucking energy, some kind of weird force. And now that I have retuned my own body, and by the way, just for an update, while we're talking about resonance and frequencies, the human resonance of the planet Earth has been wacko these last couple days. I mean, off the charts, like for 14, 15 hours before there's a little break, and then it goes off the charts again. So I haven't checked it this morning yet, but yesterday, the day before, oh my God, off the charts. Whatever the Schumann is doing right now, the resonance of the earth, she's really putting out some stuff. Just saying. And so with that said, though, too, but yes, I think they're using the 440 to their advantage now. Exactly, Melanie, because they wish to create more chaos. And the louder it is, then those frequencies are being sent out. I mean, we got folks down here in the South that, and surprisingly enough, there's a redneck pickup truck with a redneck in it, white, and he's playing black music louder than the black guys. And he's sitting in his truck going, doom, doom, doom. This is not like a racial thing. This is not a blacks only. There are a lot of, if you look at him, it's like, Georgia and the kid in the back pissing off and it's a redneck truck listening to rap music. It's like the really oddest thing down here, what? Okay. But to the point though, it's not about, well, it's all about the blacks. It really isn't. It's about a certain, I hate to use the word mentality. It might be, and I don't mean this as in mental illness. I mean mental state, like the chemical reaction, boys versus girls, hormones, whatever. I'm just saying that certain people are wired for certain things. Like, I don't like certain different types of jazz, period. I don't care how low you play it, but other people get off on it. All right. Okay. I get it, but almost everyone can sit down and listen to some really good acoustical guitar. Almost everyone, regardless of whether you like rap or jazz or some other kind of alternative stuff, which some of it's really cool and others, it's just noise. But there are people who are getting off on the noise, just the noise. And I'm a sound effects guy. I'm a Foley artist, if you will. And it's like, but there is some of this stuff that I just can't do. And I'm wired differently than other people. And I try to accept simply for understanding, but there's some of it I can't. So these people have to be wired differently to be able to accept it so easily, so readily, and at such a volume. And they don't even notice that it's up real loud. It's like they're sitting in the truck. I can hear them from a block away. All right. And actually, the words are more clear a block away. Just saying. But as you walk up to them and they're like, well, yeah, will you turn that down? They're like, well, I don't know about this, well, hang on here. And they're like sitting in the truck, texting somebody, and it's like, hey, you have to holler. And they're like, what? Doesn't even bother them. It's that level. So I agree with a lot of people. It's not just playing it loud. It's that certain music must be played loud, that there is there's no change. I mean, I can listen to Jethro Tull turned down, I can listen to, different other bands. I mean, Iron Butterfly, okay, you know, Dark Side of the Moon, okay. It doesn't have to be turned up all the way. It's cool when it is at certain circumstances when I'm in the mood, but at other times it's good. I can put it on in the background. But this, you know, you never hear of anybody playing rap music in the background. It's just quiet, kind of low. You, it's always turned up for what it's worth. Just something to keep an eye on. But I do believe, Melanie, it is part of this new, well, it's been going on for the last 20 years, especially. So I can't really say that this is new, but it's been promoted. You know, I mean, come on, I grew up on Motown. Come on, I know there are black artists out there that have got good singing voices. You know, why not be more like Motown? That's all that's all I'm saying. You know, couldn't you be more like Motown? I mean, how hard would that sincerely be? But anyway, so but love and honor to all of you, and I'll wrap this up. You know, and yeah, they're doing some weird stuff because they have the technology now to absolutely do things that I wouldn't dream of doing. Could I dream of doing it just to see what went on? Yeah, but I'm like, why? You know, but these people do have a specific thing in their backmasking, in the background noises and things, in tempos, beats, and yep, it's affecting folks. And yep, it is part of the chaos. And yep, I can't listen to it. Now, maybe that's because well, I do understand that. I'm sure that my frequency has changed because I've been working on it. But to the point, though, I want to say that my frequency is higher. And maybe why I've looked at it. Why can't I accept that? Well, jazz to me, it just sounds like noise. But no, I mean, the rap music and some of this, you know, other stuff. And it's like, well, okay. How come how it just the frequencies are just so um backwards. It's almost like when they're played, it pushes me away rather than draws me in. Where other folks are pulled towards it, it's like I'm being repelled from it. It's like the opposite poles of a magnet kind of deal. You know, it does not draw me in. You know, it actually I'm repelled from it. And I, you know, it's an observation on my part, and I've tried as an experiment. How can I listen to this? And it's there's just something there that pushes me out. Now maybe there's some type of subliminal backmasking and other kinds of things in there, and my spirit is of such, especially these last 10 years, to where that my aura just can't accept it. It won't accept it. I've tuned out certain other types of frequencies as part of my own personal protection and meditation and my spirit journey. But that now, and I'm not saying I'm better than somebody, I'm just saying that my frequency has changed. My personal frequency has changed. And there are a lot of us, our frequencies are changing. And I look at folks who are really kind of really still in that chaotic negative, and it's like the chaos of the chaos that's in their music is blocking out the messages for them to change frequencies. So I'm not saying that all, you know, folks who listen to rap and that kind of music, you know, hip hop and so forth, that, you know, that you're all, you know, no, because some folks can turn it down and some does, you know. So this isn't across the board, but I'm going to say in that particular side of the industry, it's it's 90% more than any of the other music industry, in my humble opinion, because they're able to hide it in there. If hip hop and such were so cool and groovy, then why doesn't everyone listen to it? Whereas a good acoustical arrangement, even by a hip hop group, is more people will listen to that than any of the other recordings. So it's the type of music that they play and at the volume. It's not the artists themselves. It's what they're being handed, how they're being told to play it, or push it or the volume or whatever. And it's like, okay, so pay attention to this. Just saying, you know. Um, so why aren't more of us, I mean, Eric Clapton was, I mean, I listened to him when he was in Cream in the 60s, I was a big Cream fan, and Eric Clapton, um, and so people see, well, Eric Clapton, oh, well, he went, Eric Clapton went unplugged. And there were folks who were like, oh my God, it was sort of like the opposite effect. It was like when Bob Dylan picked up an electric guitar. There were Dylan fans who were like, I'll never listen to Bob Dylan again. It was really strange back then. Bob Dylan playing an electric guitar, people were pissed. I'm here to tell you. But but things change now. But he used the guitar to his benefit, and then there were better instruments to be able to pick up some guitars so that he could continue playing an acoustic but still be electrified, and changes. But to the point though, in this chaos, the more chaos they put into the chaos, meaning the hip hop and that kind of music, and the louder that it is, Rick and Delaney, blessings, blessings, blessings to you. And greetings, as always. That there is something. Now, I'm going to spell this different. When I say earth magic, I spell it MAJIK, and people go, why? Well, because there's a difference. Now, these folks are using MAGIC, magic. They're using abracadabra, okay? And so they're using the 440 chaos to their advantage. And let's see, the thought in that was that, so in the tonality of the different frequencies, another a 440, okay, you're turning to, your bottom E is at 440 instead of 432 on a guitar. And so it's like, okay, so your middle C is going to be higher than normal. So you can create wavelengths if you can see it on an oscilloscope. And some of these, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's called GIMP. GIMP and something else. GIMP is part of the it's part of the free software thing through not when actually Chrome is based on it, but to the point. You can get a free download, and some of the programs, when you listen to the track, you can see it on a little scope, and you can monitor how the where the wavelength is, and if it peaks too much, and you can actually pull those fragments in and change the overall tone of the track. And if there's too much hiss or pops or something in the background, you can do certain settings and you can fix that hiss and pop digitally with these. It's free software now. I mean, it's absolutely astounding. I love tickling with this stuff. But to the point though, they're also able to weave melodies and frequencies hidden in the loudness that those of us are like, I don't get it. They just can't listen to it without it up on high, and I don't get it. And so the more that it was brought up and just here recently within this last week or so of people discussing this frequency again. And for those tuning in late, I think 432 sounds better on a guitar, just plain and simple. It's easier to play. It sounds better. It's easier to tune. So sue me. But I give my reasons at the beginning of the video. But to the point, though, in looking and doing just a little bit more insight into this, what's up with this music these days, and how is it contributing to the chaos? The more I'm sitting here allowing this download to come in during this video, it's like, yes, they are making it so that, you can't listen to, Tupac or whoever, with it and just laying, at a medium to low volume level in the background. It just ain't there, and it's because the message isn't being heard. And I think that I know that there are certain stimuli that people are used to. And if you don't get that stimuli, so for me, I'm repelled by that chaos that they have created, where others are drawn to it. So it's do something in their brains, and I'm not saying that they're idiotic or whatever, because there are so many CIA report stuff coming out about how they've had mind control machines for 40 years. Okay, plain and simple. They've been hiding things in commercials. They passed a law about it, and then they kind of like, well, the digital age came in, and now if you watch anything with a lot of flashing lights, they're programming you. If it's a blink and a blink and a blink, all the little news things and all the swirly twirlies with the flashing lights, they are programming you. And as a person who spent a majority of my lifetime at 66 having seizure issues, I understand this. When I see a commercial with the flash, 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 within 3 seconds, if I don't shut my eyes or turn myself away, it will trigger something inside my brain. And oh well, Dave, no, I've had ill effects because of mine and what it's done to me. But other people are like, it's drawn, ooh, flashing lights. And it's still doing the same thing to their brain. They're just not aware of it. I'm aware of the flashing lights now and what's going on and the blast of messages, 3 flashes and then a 1 and then a 2 more. That's like binary code. That's like Morse code to your brain. And when you watch the same program every time, and I think to myself, how come these libtards are, I hate to use that word, but for simple sake, how can some of these people, my friends, many of them still included, still want Hillary to run in 2 years? And I'm like, you're nuts. Number one, the original Hillary's dead. But the second point is, why are you still on this? And it's the flashing lights, because they watch these programs, and at the beginning of each segment, they come back in the twirly, twirly, flashy, flashy. And I think absolutely positively, because I can listen to those shows, but I can't watch them. And up to a point, I'm like, well, this is BS. I can't listen to it either. But if even Alex Jones started doing it. Now, there are other people who are copying it, thinking that it's the norm and that it's just cool and this is part of advertisement. But the flashing lights are on purpose. So any commercial, if there's a quick flash of pictures going by, they are programming you. Going to do a separate video on that. But at the tail end of this, because you asked about backmasking and so forth, they're doing that in visually in what we're watching, especially with commercials and stuff like that. And so, I simply can't watch regular TV anymore. I mean, I got a Hulu subscription. I'm watching old McHale's Navy and stuff. I'm watching new stuff, but to the point, I find that the acting in some of the older sitcoms and so forth is so much better than today. The comic reactions and so forth, but that's another subject too. But to the point, though, they weren't putting anything there. They weren't dropping anything in subliminally. I mean, McHale's Navy, they were talking about Chi-Chi hula girls and making hooch and gambling and playing dice, and trying to get out of, they went to war. They, did what they were told, but on their off time, so, but it's like, okay, fine. But to the point, though, newer stuff, there's all it's flashing lights and it's quick scene changes and it's this for and that. And okay, it's really great and artistic and all that. But some of this stuff is affecting our brains, because I've noticed it myself, because I've had to deal with seizures these 30 years, a good half of my life. And so I look at it and I think, wait a minute, hang on. Why did they need to do that flip, 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 flip? And if I go back and play it slowly through, there's, especially if you can play it frame by frame, sometimes there'll be a tenth of a second something there. Don't know what it is, but it's there. And they put it right between two. It's actually in the middle of a frame. If 32 feet per second, now it's 60 frames per second now. And I don't know, the new high def is even higher than that. But to the point, it's like, so in the middle of, if there's 60 frames in 1 second, that's 1/60th of a second. All they need is one of those to plant something in your brain. That's all it takes. And when they do it repeatedly, and you continue watching the flashing lights and going, ooh, pretty swirling flashing lights, the more you're drawn in, the more the message hits you. And I think that some of my liberal friends have been watching the swirling lights too long, and they have been hypnotized and mesmerized because of it. Because I look at them and I go, are you subliminal? Yeah, like big time. They are whacking on folks. And I've tried to, speak on this before, and everybody's, well, not everybody, you folks have been kind, but in some other videos, I've had some people, so you've had, every time I criticize someone who has too many flashing lights, oh, well, you're just a conspiracy theorist. On a conspiracy channel, why is Alex Jones, for example, when he was, I watched him on YouTube occasionally, why is he doing all the spinning lights like all the other networks? Is it to copy them? Why can't he just have a simple logo and this and that? What's with the flashing lights? And I'm like, so when I would bring it up, or some other YouTube channels, who, by the way, are no longer on YouTube, but to the point, though, they started with the swirling flashing lights. And I was like, what is your purpose with the flashy guys? I'm just asking. Do you think it's cool? Well, don't you understand that with these flashes of light, you can literally send tons of information in one frame in 60 in a second? And you're like, well, it's not really there. Bullshit. I'm sorry. I gotta but you have to be aware that it's there. They did it to us in the 50s. This hasn't gone away. It's just been snuck into 60 frames per second. The flashing lights, I mean, what if anybody ever has to, be tested by a neurologist or whatever, and those folks are cruel bastards, by the way. They sit you in a chair and they start flashing lights slowly. Then there's a 15-second pause, and then they turn it up a notch. Then it flashes quicker. Strobe light. And then they pause, and then you turn it up a notch, and now it flashes a little faster and a little bit more intense. They turn it off. They're stimulating the brain to have a flipping seizure. And I've had several grand mal seizures because of what they did to me with flashing lights. Now, yes, I've had a lot of brain trauma, but to the point, they stimulate us with light. And I have told people for years, I have never felt such intense pain as I felt with the flashing light they were putting on me. And especially when it got up to the high strobe speed, which would send me into a grand mal seizure. And oh, well, Dave, that's because no, they understand this about our brains. I was watching another video that was 2 years old, actually, that was right on the money about what psychiatry has done to people over the centuries. And they've used devices. They would hold children down and adults, but children especially, like, oh my God. And they would hold babies down and drip cold water on them to see their reaction, and hold their nose so they would try to breathe through their mouth and stop crying. They couldn't cry and breathe at the same time. I mean, I sometimes wondered, because I was adopted and it took 3.5 years to get there, what they did to me as a child, because I've got some horrible dreams. I don't know why I should have them and where they came from. They had to have come from somewhere. And when I've had discussions about, my before 4-year-old type dreams and things, other people have had like similar kind of, you know, being in a cave, trying to get away from something, and, you know, trying to be able to run, but understand that you're probably too young to be able to run. So you're trying to crawl and run at the same time. And there's this awkwardness, and, you know, and whatever is coming, you really don't want to go back. You know, you just want to get away. You don't know where. You just want away from what's back there. So, but to the point though, so people who are claiming that the flashing lights aren't affecting them are the ones who are being affected. You have to understand this is a huge part of the game. And maybe I guess I need to do a separate video on this, because this is the end of this one, or towards it. I got some stuff to do. But to the point though, if you don't think, you know, just do a little bit of research. It doesn't take much. And is everybody doing it? No. But the big wheels with all the flashy, swirly lights, there are patterns in the way that these lights will travel that will give you certain impressions. So it's drawing you in, it's hypnotizing you before you hear their bullshit. I'm pre-hypnosis. You will believe what we tell you next, you know? But when you don't watch it and then you go back to it, I mean, that's what happened with me when I got so sick. It was almost 6 months before I could even really watch regular TV, because I was having so many seizures and passing out all the time. It was really bad. But anyway, but to the point though, as I was looking, I'd had that respite of watching television because I was conked out all the time. When I was started to come back around from my months of having seizures, I realized, oh my God, that, you know, that commercial is triggers. Oh, that news program triggers. Not all of them, but and not every time they would play. And there would be certain things. And then I started watching it and paying attention. It's like, well, they triggered me with flashing lights. What are these assholes doing with the television? What are they trying to make us all have seizures? They're hypnotizing us. They're doing their agenda is not good, because otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. Now, I state that because psychiatry, not psychologists, but psychiatry, and their medicines, the people who are on certain medicines, are being mesmerized by the flashing lights and the pharmaceuticals they have been taking. And I, as an afterthought, that may be also the reason, you know, certain people on certain drugs, and that they're drawn into certain frequencies that they enjoy the chaos. Don't know why, you know, but there are more people who listen to rap type hip hop music, not black. I'm here to tell you, there are a lot of rednecks down here. I'm like, what the hell are you? Why aren't you listening to some George Jones or something? You know, I mean, Willie's still alive, but you know, anyway, and Willie smokes weed, you know, but you know, anyway, but you know, I don't get it. I don't get it, but it has to do with some kind of frequency in their brain, and it's stimulating them. It's doing something. It is like a cocaine, if you will. So. And because I'm off of my most of my pharmaceutical, you know, 6 pills a day versus 36 pills a day, big difference, you know. But I know that my mind is a lot clearer in a lot of different ways. But I watch some of these flashy light thingies, you know, and I'm like, you know, wait till it's over. Can't even look out of the corner of my eye. It's really strange, because the flashing will trigger me no matter what. You know, if I try to look peripherally, doesn't work. Got to block it, because the light goes inside whether I want it to or not. Can't look, you know, wait till it's over, then I'll watch the program. It is what it is. But the other part of this, and some of the programs themselves, they're flipping through scenes, and they're doing this so quickly, you don't have a clue what's going on. And I've noticed that, you know, they're reflecting on something. Yes, but they're reflecting on something for a fraction of a second. I mean, it's like one frame. What are you people doing? Okay, there's six. I mean, there's 1 second. There's 60 frames in a second, so you're getting a lot of frames in that one picture. But that picture's only there for less than 2 seconds. I mean, click, 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 and your brain's going, what, and you don't know what they just did to you because they just did it to you. But I'm seeing that even in the middle of the program, they're doing things. And, so leave the picture there for 2 seconds or 3 seconds. Let me see the picture. And then let me, but they're flipping them so fast. That's where I'm wondering, what are you all up to? Just saying. So let me read what you said over here, and then I really got to go feed chickens and outsource chores and other stuff. So I wasn't supposed to be here doing this. I confirmed the seizure thing. I worked as a paramedic in many, many, many calls for healthy young males suddenly going down with grand mal seizures after playing certain video games. Absolutely, pat on the back. Oh, and hello, Pat, on the back. We would even have to shut the lights off, the rigs in the trucks, so would not re-evacuate more seizures. Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been in emergency rooms where I'd been in the middle of counseling or something and have a seizure, and they'd have to take me to the emergency room. The first thing I would say is, the light is hurting me. That light is hurting me. And they all look at me, well, you're crazy and we're not going to listen to you. But I'm here to tell you that especially when you've been triggered, the light hurts. It's painful. Is it hitting my body? Whatever it's doing to me, it's giving a pain response in the brain. And after watching this thing last night and then something else today about this, why I'm doing this, I need to do a separate video on the flashing lights rather than the frequency thing, and go back over this again. But pat on the back, you're absolutely right. And these people who do that to us, I've never met a neurologist that wasn't I'm sorry, but an asshole, a butt wipe past Jupiter. I mean, just, narcissistic. And like, wait a minute. Okay. So I go to one and he tells me this, you spend $200 for him to give you this. Well, there's something wrong with your head. Well, duh, you're supposed to be the neurologist. Neurologists these days, I swear, they don't have a clue how the brain is working. They're doing these tests because somebody else told them to. And, how can I had one neurologist tell me I was faking grand mal seizures? How can you fake a grand mal seizure? I'm an actor. I've tried. And when I had grand mal seizures, there's no way I could act like that. I mean, there's no way I could portray a true grand mal seizure after having them as an actor. And I've done a lot of acting, a lot of play stuff, very believable in some of my performances, but that's not my point. As an actor, there is no freaking way I could duplicate or try to imitate a grand mal seizure after having been in, I don't know, 10 at least. I mean, really serious 10. And that was the medication they were using on me and the light factor and all that. But so people are taking these medications, my nerves. I mean, I got family members that they can't function without them. And it's like, okie dokie. But just let me warn you all, though, understand it's taking its toll on you. You feel okay. And if you don't take my whatever it is, you can't make it through the day. I used to be that way. I'm not that way anymore. And I'm here to tell you that there is life beyond pharmaceuticals. That's all I'm saying. There are ways to control things. But to this other point, though, people have no idea what's going on with themselves. They gave me medicines, gave me flashing lights, and they sent me into grand mal seizures and put me in a wheelchair for 3 months. That's what they did to me. And they're doing it to other people, too. You just don't hear about it because they turn our brains into frickin' mush. And that, well, I can't talk, thick sweat, I was drooling and, palsy. And I quit taking all their medicines and I don't have that anymore. So there's going to be a separate video later maybe tomorrow, the next day, but I don't know if I'll waste Halloween with that or not. Was going to tell ghost stories tonight for Halloween, but maybe. But to the other side of this coin, though, to wrap this up, if people, who are watching these flashing lights, if they really only knew what was going on, they would complain. But because of the flashing lights, their brains are being turned to mush, much like many of us who've been to neurologists and have had the seizure test, etc. That guess what, gang? This ain't fun. This is real. They're experimenting on us all the time. I've never met a neurologist who could help me. All they did was make me more sick and almost killed me the last time. And that's been about 6 years ago now. And I'm still trying to get over that mess. It's taken a long time. They almost killed me with the lights and the drugs. So be safe out there. Let's see what, pat on the back. Thanks, Hawkeye. Have a great day, and give the chickens a pat on the back for me. I'm headed out there and here in just a second. So thank you, Pat. We love you much. And what Pat says is so very true. After having a seizure, you're so light sensitive. I mean, a candle hurts. It's soft, but it can still, if it's too close, it's like it's too much light. So to sum up the rest of it, quit thinking it's all satanic about the 440. Yes, the frequency's weird. Yes, the tuning is odd. If you're a guitar player or any kind of, stringed instrument, then I would ask you to try 432. It's just cleaner, better, easier to tune. Just sounds cool. Is it satanic or not? I don't know. Now, what is satanic is the flashing lights and the subjective, subliminal things they're doing to your brain with commercials. Even some YouTubers are doing it. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose, but they're doing it thinking it's cool. So they're repeating what's wrong. What else is new? So it's adding to the chaos. So I give you all my blessings. I thank you so much, every one of you, for your opinions and your love and your honor, and you always honor me with your presence. I mean that sincerely. So thank you, Pat on the back, and Melanie, and everyone else who's been in here. Have a wonderful day. Be safe out there, Hallerweenie, when you get a chance. Yeah, I used to do a puppet show that it said, one of the puppets was like, it was "You're a Dumb Bonehead" was the character's name. And he would say, well, everybody's running around there. What do they want me to do? They want me to Hallerween. Ween, it's Hallerween time. So everybody gather around. We're going to all Hallerween. Ween. Okay, so be safe, everybody, and blessings to all. And may you accept and receive all of the wonderful gifts from the cosmos, and accept and receive the healing that's there in the universe at all times. So love everybody. Thank you all. And till next time, maybe later on this evening. Adios, you all. Be sweet.